Mercantilism and plantation wealth, money in the new colonies. By the 17th century, the age of silver was giving way to a new kind of wealth, the wealth of land. Across the Caribbean, the coasts of Brazil, and the plantations of the American South, a new economy was taking shape, one built not on mines and mountains, but on sugar, tobacco, coffee, and human bondage. This was the world of mercantilism, a system where colonies existed to feed empires, and where wealth was measured not by freedom or fairness, but by control. The mercantilist worldview. In early modern Europe, money was power, and power depended on possession. Kings and merchants believed the world's wealth was finite, a single pie to be divided among competing empires. To grow rich, one nation had to take from another. This idea became the foundation of mercantilism. Colonies would supply raw materials, the mother country would manufacture goods, and all profits would return to the empire. Trade was tightly regulated. Colonies were forbidden from trading freely with rivals. Everything flowed toward the imperial center: gold, silver, sugar, cotton, and coffee, in exchange for control, armies, and manufactured goods. Europe's ports, Lisbon, Seville, London, Amsterdam, became the beating hearts of empire. Ships left loaded with weapons and textiles, and returned filled with crops and commodities that would reshape global taste and industry. The birth of the plantation system. In the tropical colonies of the Caribbean and Brazil, sugar became white gold. It demanded vast land, endless labor, and brutal efficiency. At first, colonists tried to enslave indigenous peoples, but disease and resistance decimated the native population. Then came the Atlantic slave trade, one of the darkest engines of the early modern economy. Between the 1500s and the 1800s, over 12 million Africans were captured, sold, and shipped across the ocean to labor in mines and plantations. The system formed a deadly triangle. European goods went to Africa, enslaved Africans to the Americas, and sugar, tobacco, and coffee back to Europe. Each voyage completed a loop of profit and of suffering. The plantation was both a business and a machine, designed for maximum output, minimum humanity. The world was learning a new language of wealth, profit margins, yields, and exports, words that would define the centuries to come. The economics of sugar and slavery. Sugar was more than a crop. It was the first industrial commodity. Plantations ran like factories, fields, mills, and refineries operating day and night. Owners borrowed money from European banks, insured their ships, and reinvested profits into expanding production. Every part of the system was monetized. Human lives were valued as assets. Food, time, and punishment were calculated in cost. In the Caribbean islands like Barbados, Saint Domingue, Haiti, and Jamaica, sugar exports made small colonies richer than entire European kingdoms. By 1750, Saint Domingue alone supplied over a third of the world's sugar, and was called the Pearl of the Antilles. But beneath the sweetness was unimaginable cruelty. For every ton of sugar produced, human lives were consumed in heat, exhaustion, and chains. Money and power, the triangle of trade. Mercantilism was not just economic theory, it was empire in motion. The triangular trade linked continents into a closed circuit of profit. Europe sent manufactured goods, guns, textiles, liquor, to Africa. Africa sent enslaved people to the Americas, and the Americas sent sugar, tobacco, rum, and coffee back to Europe. Each port city became a node in the world's first corporate network. Bristol, Nantes, and Lisbon grew rich. Luanda and Elmina became centers of human trafficking. And Havana, Bahia, and Charleston thrived on the labor of the enslaved. Ships sailed with the blessing of kings and the investments of merchants, an early form of state-sponsored capitalism. Empires like Spain, Portugal, France, and England competed fiercely, building forts, monopolies, and navies to guard their money colonies. This was wealth by conquest, the very essence of mercantilism. Colonial currency and control. In the colonies, actual money was scarce. Coins were hoarded, and barter remained common. To solve this, colonists developed local currencies: Spanish silver pesos, paper notes, and even commodity money like tobacco or sugar certificates. For example, in Virginia, tobacco served as legal tender well into the 18th century. In the Caribbean, sugar could be used to settle debts. Colonial treasuries sometimes issued bills of credit, early experiments in paper money, backed not by gold, but crops and promises. These improvised currencies reflected a deeper truth, that money in the colonies was never neutral. It was a tool of control, binding every farmer, merchant, and slave to the rhythm of empire. The rise of colonial wealth and European power. By the 18th century, plantation profits flooded into European capitals. Banks in London, Amsterdam, and Paris thrived on the sugar trade. Insurance firms like Lloyd's of London were founded to protect slave ships. And entire cities, Liverpool, Bordeaux, and Lisbon, were built on the wealth of human suffering. The influx of colonial capital funded Europe's industrial revolution. It financed new factories, ships, and machines, a cycle where slavery and progress were tragically intertwined. The plantation, in many ways, was the prototype of the modern corporation, hierarchical, profit-driven, and global in reach. The human cost and resistance. But where there is oppression, there is resistance. Across the Americas, enslaved and indigenous peoples fought for freedom through revolts, escapes, and survival. The most powerful of these came in Haiti, where in 1791 enslaved Africans rose up, defeating French armies and founding the first Black republic in history. The Haitian Revolution shattered the illusion that slavery was eternal. It was a warning and a beginning. The plantation world could produce wealth, but it could not kill the human desire for liberty. Reflection: the price of sweetness. The age of mercantilism gave birth to global capitalism and to its moral contradictions. Sugar, tobacco, and coffee transformed the world's habits and economies, but they were sweetened by human suffering. From Potosi's mines to Caribbean plantations, colonial wealth built the modern world and left behind a legacy of inequality that still shapes it today. The colonies were called New Worlds, but they were, in truth, the engines that remade the old one.